E3D Revos that just won't print right, Benchies with some weird artifacts, pillowing on your first layer, and pancake failures? All this and more, PrintFixFriday, episode 60. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here and you're looking to get help with your 3D printers, make sure to leave a like and get subscribed. We do these videos every week to help you fix your print failures. And remember, we want to look at your specific failures. So if you have some print failures that you want us to take a look at, make sure to tag us on the social medias, or you can slide into those DMs and send it to me directly. We like helping out our fans, so don't be afraid. I'm generally not going to make fun of you unless you're deliberately trolling, and then, well, you asked for it. But otherwise, we're here to help the community and help the community grow. So, and if you know people that are dealing with these problems, send them the videos. Hopefully it'll help them out. But what could help them out more is our sponsor, 3D Musketeers. We know that print fails suck. It's fine, I understand. But that's why we have professionals here at 3D Musketeers with over 40 years of combined experience to help you print better all the time. And you see us doing it often, whether we're printing on MakerDeck. In fact, we're printing live on MakerDeck right now, or we're doing things on printers that can actually be covered by non-disclosure agreements. We are here to help you get those ideas out of your head and into your hands. And whether that requires high-end 3D scanning to start or some CAD design, we got you covered from art to part. And if you do want to get the assistance of the crew of 3D Musketeers, you can hit us up. Links are in the description down below. We have some awesome 3D scanners and a lot of awesome 3D scanning content coming, so get subscribed for that. And if you do want to kick a couple of bucks into that creator fund to make these videos better, maybe we start using better cameras for it. I don't honestly know if I can mount that camera to my mount that I have currently, but I will be trying. You can kick a couple of bucks into that creator fund by joining our Patreon and YouTube channel members for literally a couple of dollars a month to help the channel grow. We would greatly appreciate your support, but we recognize that's not always possible, and that's okay. A like and subscribe goes a long way, and hey, if you like the content, a share helps out a ton to assist in the growth of this channel to get us to a point where it is self-sustaining. And thank you to all the corporations and companies that have reached out. Hopefully we will be working with you guys in the near future, but we are still looking for sponsors. And if you do want to either sponsor a specific video, a topic video, a podcast even, we have sponsorship spots open. I am still figuring out the price points. So if you do know price points, that'd be great. Help me. But otherwise, yeah, let's get back into that video. Enough call to actions. Let's get back into it. I need some help with my printer. This is good. You've come to the right place for this. Hi, I have an Ender 5 Plus. It prints IMO pretty great, but only as long as my nozzle is new. Then it'll print for about 14 to 15 hours before the extruder starts skipping. They have a Revo, and therefore they print regular PLA at 230. No, you should not need to print PLA that hot. PLA is more than happy at 215. Hell, 205 is perfectly fine for a Revo. And they say because the Revo measures the temp about 10% too low. What? I know there have been some people that are questioning the Revo's accuracy, but if your temps appear to be stable, and there are heater core issues, so if you have a heater core that has an issue, reach out to E3D, they replace them. I know this because this is one of my replacement heater cores. It's really simple. They just mail them to you. It's great. Or I guess whoever you bought it from as well. You could reach out to your reseller. They've got a dual Swiss metal extruder, so it's one of those probably red dual gear metal extruders. Could there be something with the fan? When I cold pull, it looks good. I've also tried cleaning it with cleaning filament. That doesn't work either. Any ideas? This is not right. It's not. It's not. It's just not. It's not moisture. This is not going to be a moisture problem. If after 14 to 15 hours, you're having issues with your filament, or you're having issues with your printer, it is likely heat creep. There's not a good way to determine if it is heat creep currently. I know Chep is working on one. He did a video about a heat creep device that he's working on, which is basically just a thermistor that turns on a light, which is really cool because it's a good indicator of, hey, are things getting too hot? But I'm worried that you're not cooling your hot end enough and you are dealing with heat creep. It's not moisture, or your nozzle could be too close. A bad Z offset can cause your nozzle to build up from molten filament, not being able to extrude the small gap until it forcefully... No, no. If all of a sudden the extruder starts to skip 15 hours in, it's not that. And it's certainly not that with a Revo. This is an E3D Revo. This is a Revo 6 Prusa edition. And the actual nozzle itself is the heat break as well. And that means you don't really have blobbing issues like you would see in other hot ends potentially. So you won't have that issue. You're not gonna have an issue like that. Now, if you do have issues with blobbing up on the tip of the nozzle, that's possible. I'm not going to rule it out as not possible, but probably not. Someone is saying also if your first layers are slow and it works, then your layer speed goes up and it starts skipping. It may be that your temp is a bit low. That's fair. Try a print with no fan and see if it helps, and it will tell you if the fan is cooling the nozzle. That's the case, get a sock for it. Revos come with built-in socks, and if it is cooling your hot end too much, your printer should go into thermal runaway because it won't be able to hit its temperature that it is going after, and you can monitor this yourself. You don't need, to do all that. Just look at your temperatures. Are your temperatures consistent? Great, you're good to go. But if you don't have a fan blowing across the heat sink on your Revo, it is going to have problems with heat creep. There's no way to get around that. It's just part and parcel of the systems. My best guess is that we don't have enough air moving across our Revo. 14 to 15 hours is longer than I would expect for heat creep, but if you're printing at a reasonably fast rate, the actual convection of the hot end moving back and forth is going to accomplish some cooling on its own. And for an Ender 5 Plus, it is a Core XY-ish. I think it's Cartesian, just laid on its side, but the bed only moves up and down. The gantry moves all around.
Jump up and down and move it all around.
So all of that motion would give you some convection-based cooling, but it could cause that failure. I still think 230 is way too hot for PLA. We routinely print on our Revo printers at normal temperatures. Even the Obsidians, I'm only raising a couple of degrees when we absolutely need to. A lot of times it's just not necessary. I would be looking at your temperatures. I'd be looking at your actual hot end cooling itself to verify that you are not getting heat creep. And when your extruder does start to skip, let's touch that heat sink on the machine. Is it hot? My bet is it will be, because if cold pulls are clean, it leads me toward that it's not a nozzle clog. Cleaning filament's not going to do much. It's a Revo. You shouldn't be clogging your Revo. And dual drive extruders on Bowden printers are generally okay. Even the cheap ones actually work pretty well, all things considered. It's nowhere near as good as something from like Micro Swiss or Bondtech or other various companies, Fadis and Drop Effect, right? We met with a lot of these companies at the East Coast Rep Festival. We'll card to that video so you guys can take a look. But I am a little worried that we have commenters sending this person down the wrong direction. To me, I'm going after cooling. If your hot end is not properly cooled, you're going to have a heat creep problem. But overall, I don't believe it's going to be the Revo's fault. You could have a faulty heater core. If you are curious of that, just watch as you're heating up the machine. It will fluctuate quite a bit, even when there's no fan on it. But the Revo, because there's so little exposed brass or copper if it's the Obsidian, you shouldn't have any issues with even dumping a ton of cooling on it. Now, if you are running too fast, that could be an issue, but I think you would see that a lot sooner than 14 to 15 hours into a print. I'm gonna follow up with this one. Maybe we'll have an update later on in the month, but of course it requires the poster to get back to me too, so we'll see. Rough underhull on one side of Benchy consistently, question mark. Okay, we've got some temperature differences. It's only rough on one side, it's cooling. So that is normally what causes this. It is normally a cooling issue. Let's see, because we got a little bit of extra information here. 60 millimeters a second, cooling at 100. Bed is level with BL touch, that's fine. And we got a great answer here. It is your cooling, rotate it 90 degrees, it might go away. I don't believe it's going to be a Z-screw issue. And Tom Sadletter actually hilariously did a video all about the 3D Benchy, which I laughed at because I had talked about wanting to do a video on the Benchy in our video that came out on Friday, which came out a couple of hours after his. But in my personal defense, I did record that video a few days earlier. So there's really no way that Tom and I could have known we had the same idea. But I will, of course, delay mine a little bit because I don't like stepping on creators' toes. It's not fair. Mind you, Tom's audience is massive, so, you know, whatever. But I do believe this is a cooling issue. It is common on the Benchy, if you don't have proper cooling on it, that the bow here on it will kind of cave in a little bit. And that's because you're not able to cool this overhang, which is 40 degrees. So look at either upgrading your cooling or slowing your printer down. 60 millimeters a second might be too fast for your cooling, and if that's the case, slow her down or look at upgrading to a better cooling solution. I can see they've tried some different temperatures, at least that's what we can see here. It is a CR10 V2, so it is Bowden, and it is a micro Swiss. Well, if you've upgraded this much, it wouldn't be bad to go over to something like a blower fan that will give you more air where you need it, when you need it, how you need it. Been seeing this on large areas of solid infill since upgrading to Creality Sprite. This is a combination of pillowing and over extrusion, and I have not seen it this bad in a long time. We have people saying the Z offset is too close. Put it up in increments of 0.05, maybe, but I think we're over extruding. More top layers should be good. That would help it. And if they are seeing it on the first layer, then you are definitely too close to your bed. You will want to raise that up. So seeing this information, I would agree here. But I would also look at making sure that your steps per millimeter are calibrated appropriately. You can also slow down. That will be good for cooling. And if it is an Ender 3 Pro and you went to a Sprite, you went from a Bowden to a direct drive system. I'm not exactly certain if you need to recalibrate your steps per millimeter after that, but it wouldn't be bad to make sure that everything is still copacetic. Now, 3 top layers is a little small. Personally, I like to do 5 or 6, and that seems to be the concession here, that a lot of people prefer more top layers. So let's review some of the advice here that we've got. We've got people saying your Z offset is too close. Without knowing that their first layer looked like that as well, I would not agree with that, but knowing their first layer looks like that, I would agree that that is Z offset. But all the way this far up in the print, your Z offset will have worked itself out. 2, we've got more top layers. Absolutely agree. More top layers is going to help solve this problem. 3 top layers is way too little. I'd be looking at least 5, if not 6. That does, of course, increase material usage and print time, but if it means your prints come out perfect, doesn't matter. We saw some things about cooling, and I would like to point out cooling as well, because as we look, areas where it doesn't have to bridge very far, the cooling looks great. I would also verify what type of infill you are running. I see infill that could be either grid or rectilinear. Because I see lines in both directions, I'm assuming that it is going to be grid, and if that's the case, you're fine. But if it is rectilinear, I might recommend changing over to something else. If you're in either Cura or Prusa Slicer, personally, I like cubic infill, and in Prusa Slicer, adaptive cubic is awesome because it does save that material usage when it can. But definitely more top layers would be good, and more cooling. What this is likely caused from is a lack of cooling causing the layers to wiggle a little bit. I'm also seeing classic signs of over extrusion. We can see that the lines appear to overlap quite a bit, and they're very squished right at the infill. And then when they're bridging, they're still squished. I'm guessing here that we've got some speed issues, because it looks okay here, and then it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And then as you get to little areas, it looks better. So my recommendations are going to be fix that Z offset, make sure your first layers look good. Go ahead and add some more top layers and recalibrate those steps per millimeter, because potentially the Sprite extruder might not have the same steps per millimeter that you are used to. It could, but we don't know for sure. Hopefully that works out. Next up, we got my buddy Jean from Proper Printing, and he's got a failure that to me is really not a failure. He is FDM printing resin. Now, remember, resin is toxic, and this is interesting. If you guys don't know Jean of Proper Printing, you got to go see the guy. His channel's awesome. We'll link to it in that description down below. But he has got some amazing photos of him FDM printing resin. He's got his graveyard of failures, a Benchy that looks a little sad, and, well, You can trust him. He's a chemist. He's not a chemist, but wears a good lab coat. Give you credit for that. I don't consider this a failure, though. I did find it and I wanted to mention it because I think this is objectively amazing. Like, really, really amazing. Because, guys, that's resin. And I'm really excited to see what Jean is going to be doing in his upcoming video, because I'm sure this is a video that he's going to be producing. So keep an eye out for that. I don't have any advice for this because I don't even know how to do something like this. Realistically, I would reach out to our good friend Ellie, who is known for her chocolate printer, Cocoa Press, and ask her, but I don't even know if Ellie would be qualified to talk about this, but Ellie's the most qualified person that I would know. And if you do want to see my interview with Ellie from the East Coast Rep Rap Festival, it's linked in the description down below because we carded to it earlier in the video, and you can only card to a video once. This one comes from our Discord server. Madcat USA submitted this. He's got a bit of a grinding problem. He's stating that the extruder pressure was a little bit too high and it started to grind the filament. That is a bummer. I would say that maybe that's not 100% of the cause. We might see some other form of back pressure that the extruder is not able to push through and therefore is grinding the filament. But we can definitely see there is a ton of extruder pressure because it ground very, very deep into that filament. Now, when you do have this occur, and this happens from time to time, it's okay. Make sure that you clean out your extruder gears because right now they're caked with, in this case, blue filament. And that means they act more as smooth rollers with a lot of tension on them rather than a toothed gear mechanism that is pushing the filament through rather than just kind of, I don't know, lightly burning out on it, if you will. So make sure you clean out those extruder gears, reduce your extruder pressure, and life will be good. Thank you for your submission, Mad Cat, and thank you for your support of the channel. After washing and curing, my parts look like this. Once the print's complete, I dunk it in 91% IPA, wash station for 2 minutes, and put it outside to air dry for a few minutes. It might come as a surprise, but unfortunately the sun has UV radiation. It's why we get sunburned. It's why ABS cracks. It's why your car paint deteriorates over time. You put a part that clearly has contaminated IPA outside in the sun to dry. There's your problem. That's what you need to do. Stop doing that. Let it air dry inside and you'll be okay. In fact, what I tend to do is when I come out of the wash station, I will just tilt the basket a little bit and leave it to drip over my container. Now, mind you, I don't use alcohol except when I'm using engineering resins. We use mean green here. It works well for my case, but your mileage may vary. I find that alcohol, of course, works better, but I don't like dealing with the alcohol mess. In my experience, mean green does not keep the resin stirred in solution and instead lets it precipitate out where it is easy to take out, therefore letting you reuse the fluid effectively indefinitely. Of course, you're going to lose some in that cured-ish resin, but I do find mean green is a lot easier to work with than IPA. That's my personal experience. But yeah, don't let your parts air dry outside. This is in the Prusa 3D subreddit, so for all of you say that I'm a Prusa fanboy and I never talk about Prusa fails, no, I just don't see them very often. It's maybe because the printers work really well. We got a Prusa fail here. Strange first layer artifacts. Would you know how I can fix them? Yeah, Razor Z offset. You're too close. Even Joe Prusa himself knows it. And the cool thing with Prusa is that you are able to live adjust the Z-axis. You can do it while you're printing. You're just a little bit too close. Yep, there you go. Common issue, nozzle too close. There's a great little copy pasta for it, which is always good. They're saying, thanks everyone for the helpful comments. I've done a first layer calibration 10 bajillion times, but I was always controlling for too high and only caring about too low if the line became almost smudged. This is my first large area print that I do know where I could see this happening firsthand. So you are able to live adjust the Z-axis, but the thing I do recommend for Prusas is that by the factory, they have a 3x3 grid and they only probe the point 3 times. You can upgrade that by just going into the screen, like it's an option, to a 7x7 and a 5 point. So you're doing 49 locations 5 times each. And that to me gets a more consistent bed mesh so that your machine can adjust for it. Because remember, 3D printers are not ever generally going to be perfectly tram. That's why we have auto bed leveling or auto bed tramming that takes care of this for us, and it's a mesh system. It's really nice, and that's one of my favorite things about the Prusa is that you're able to quickly deal with this. But yeah, typical, no big deal, man. Really easy to deal with, and quite frankly, if you have a few layers here, this will just work itself out in the next few layers and shouldn't have any detrimental effect to the top surface of your print as long as you have some decent height to it. So if you're like 3 hours deep into this first layer, you can let it ride. It's not the best, but it's not going to hurt anything too bad. Just make sure you have enough Z-hop so that when the printer is moving across the areas, it doesn't for some reason run into it. First 24-hour plus ABS print, please lend your advice. Yep, enclosure. Enclosure with a politician when we get around to getting the next generation into beta and then releasing. Anyways, the politician, for those that don't know, is our filter and heater combination for resin 3D printers, but can also work great for FDM printers because it is capable of going up to 60 degrees centigrade. It is hard limited at 60 degrees centigrade, and it is not a firmware thing. It is a hardware limit, which I am very excited about. And we are looking at a solution that might allow us to produce them faster, meaning that we can get through this beta testing phase, which has been taking me way longer than I care to admit. I'm sorry. But this is because you're not controlling your environment. And utilizing something like a Wham Bam Hotbox, remember code Musketeers 2022 through the end of 2022 for 10% off your entire order from the Wham Bam store. That is great, but having an auxiliary heater is really, really good. And we can see they only notice the cracks on the print after 19 hours. They know it's probably due to the enclosure dropping in temperature during the print. Yes, I've got my temp pretty much dialed in both for my bed and my extruder. I would fill the gaps with something, but I don't know what. Don't bother, just reprint it. It's Matter Hackers Build ABS. It's good filament. Nozzle temperature 235, nozzle size 0.4, bed of 105. You can try 110 if you want, but just be careful with how hot you go. So if you are dealing with your enclosure dropping in temperature, then you either need to make sure you keep your door shut constantly and never open it, or two, which I think might be better in your particular case, preheat the printer. You can add this into start code if you want, or just preheat it for an hour or two before you start your print. Just the bed, you don't need to preheat the hot end, just preheat the bed. That will get your chamber up to temp. That way, when you go ahead and run your print, it's a lot better because that's what we're looking for. Hope that helps. Next up, we got Alan Mandix, someone who was at the East Coast Rep Festival, but I missed. Sorry, dude. I had a really, really cool setup with a replicator one. Joel talked with him, so we'll card to Joel's video so you guys can take a look. But this is a Voron. I think it's a V0.1. And they are testing limits. Vorons are capable of printing incredibly fast. And that's one of the reasons people build them. But you can reach a limit of where your hot end is not able to heat up the filament fast enough. And that's what we have here. This is simply just them testing the limits. But something that was interesting that I saw that I thought was Mandic, but it wasn't, was from Albert 24/7 Printing. Take a look at this. That's real time. That's freaking nuts. That's nuts. Now, the only thing that you can hear in that video, and it's why we're not going to include the audio, is just blower fans, because they've got two massive blower fans here, just putting as much air as they possibly can across the part, because otherwise you're not able to print at these speeds. Vorons are insane, and I do hope to be able to build one soon. The consensus is more Voron, more better, so we're going to try to get some Voron content on the channel coming soon, so get subscribed if that is something that you are looking for. This is just running out of hot end. It's no big deal. You can see they were upping speeds, and then eventually we started running out of heater. No big deal. It happens. Although this could have actually even been running out of cooling. Who knows? But it's definitely testing the limits. Testing maximums, as they said. Next up, we got Scott. And I don't know how to say your last name, Scott, I'm sorry. But he is the maintainer of Marlin firmware. Scott, I want to interview you, and you don't have your DMs open. So slide into my DMs, since we're going to tag you in this video. I would like to interview you. Tried at ERF, you weren't there, so let's get you on a podcast and let's have some fun. Let's talk about Marlin and the state of open source in your opinion. They are messing with a 3D printer that I've really wanted to take a dive into, but just I haven't. So Pancake Bot, if you're listening, I would love to do a video. We should talk. It is the Pancake Bot. It is a 3D printer that makes pancakes. And as much as I love CocoaPress has still got a little bit of time to wait for. You can get a Pancake Bot now. And it's the same deal with CocoaPress as you have with Pancake Bot. The failures are still awesome. I am curious as to why Scott has a Pancake Bot, if it is for business or for pleasure or a little bit of both. And I do appreciate that he's going with the dinosaurs, because dinosaurs are great. But we can definitely see they're under extruding, and Pancake Bot actually replied and said you need to add a little bit more liquid to the batter for the fill stage. Make sure your griddle is preheated. Now you know the variables involved in what is needed for batter control. I love this. I don't really consider failures on Pancake Bot's failures because they're actually useful. I can still eat them. And while that might make my pants not fit very well and my shirts definitely not fit well, I've got a great opener for that video, so I would love to do a video with Pancake Bot. So, and honestly, I just want to do dumb things with it because who doesn't want dick butt shaped pancakes? Exactly. Anyways, guys, that's all I have for you today. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of these. We're going to try to do one video a month that is a deep dive, but it is going to require the people that we choose for the deep dive to reach back out to us. So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to try to have it at the end of the month. So, you know, stick around if that's your kind of thing. But that's all I got. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. Where's a good lab coat? Give you credit for that. Although it is a little short, technically. You'd want it to cover your arms completely. But that could be the way that you're wearing it. So, you know, fine. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. And a massive thank you goes out to all of our Patreon and YouTube channel member supporters whose names are listed right next to me at the $5 tier and higher. Remember, if you want to support the efforts that we do here, you can join our Patreon for as little as $1 a month to be able to support these videos and us making awesome as often as we do. Right below me will be the entire PrintFixFriday series where you can go back, take a look, and enjoy. And right next to that will be our East Coast Rep Festival playlist because they're really great videos, and the one that we just released about Printed Solid, I think you all are really going to like. I'll see you in those comments and in the next one. Take care.